and rightfully so, because there has been no shortage of, things going on in the news. And we know the normal stuff. Dan Snyder. Terry McLaurin. You know what I mean? He seems to populate it. Lately, it's been Terry McLaurin. We'll talk about that. But somebody else hijacked the news recently.
Oh, I see what you did there.
You like that? You like that? Jack Del Rio is in the news for some controversial comments. And ladies and gentlemen, before we talk about it, we're going to go ahead and play the clip just in case you did not see it. He is referring to kind of a lot of the things that have been going on, and the House committee is doing with the January 6th talks about the insurrection and kind of going through all their investigation and all their findings.
Sure.
And so he was discussing that, and then kind of referencing how, that wasn't as big of a deal in his opinion towards the riots and everything that had happened after the George Floyd. But the word that got him in trouble was that he called the January 6th incident a dust up.
Yeah. That was a dust up.
A dust up. So I'm gonna go ahead and play this clip and let you see for yourself.
Down to it. What did I ask? A simple question. Why are we not looking into those things? If we're going to talk about it, why are we not looking into those things? Because it's kind of hard for me to say. I can realistically look at it. I see the images on TV. People's livelihoods are being destroyed. Businesses are being burned down. No problem. And then we have a dust up at the Capitol. Well, there's nothing burned down. And we're not going to talk about, we're going to make that a major deal. I just think it's kind of two standards. And if we apply the same standard and we're going to be reasonable with each other, let's have a discussion.
Delilah, I agree with you. She said, what was Del Rio thinking? Will, I'm going to let you go ahead and go talk and let me stew on this for a second, man. What do you think, man? What are your reactions?
Really stupid on his part. Very, very ignorant to recognize where he's at. Some of his talking points is not something new. It's those were going around during the protest, around George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and then Kenosha. That was happening. There was that feeling was out there.
Yeah.
But his comparison is weak. It's just in general. But what makes it really stupid is he can have that opinion. All right. Keep that out of the press conference.
Right.
Keep that when you're at home talking to people, around folks who maybe feel the same way you do.
Right.
But that time and place for him to be saying something like that, where, I disagree with how he characterized it. But more importantly, you are in a profession that is led where you are supposed to be the leaders of predominantly young Black males.
Yep.
And you're sitting here kind of downplaying what happened over the last couple of years in this country, where Black people are feeling upset over how they've been treated, and they're voicing their opinions, and you're trying to you're not connecting with who you're supposed to be working with. And that's a big concern. That's a really big concern. I'm real curious to see what happens from this, what Ron does about this. I know he gave his apology, but that was bull.
Right.
It came too quick.
Right. But
it's like you were forced.
Right. And even in the apology, he apologized for essentially saying dust up. Saying that, the whole situation was a dust up. And he still stood behind his beliefs and his stance on the entire subject. So that lets you know how much weight the apology really held. And then you sit here and think about it and you're like, wait a minute, my real concern with it is just the bravado that he had in it. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, they're destroying businesses and this is just nothing. This was an attempted coup on our government.
Right.
And is that nothing?
Right.
So, but to your point, you are in a situation, you are in a position where you are working with young men, happens to be majority young African-American men who are now very, very aware of the situations and everything going around with social media and everything right at your fingertips. You got to be smarter than that. Yeah. I mean, let's not be naive. Okay. There are a lot of coaches that have been around the game for a long period of time that have kind of some of these beliefs and some of this stuff that's fine. But I think the main point is if you keep that off the field, but once you start talking about it openly, it's just a bravado that he had. They just kind of like this is how I feel. What? And it's like,
just you want to know what this is what I think. I'm going to quote Laura Ingraham when she talked to LeBron James. Jack Del Rio needs to stick to sports in his press conferences.
He said, "Shut up and dribble." Is that what he said? Yeah.
Especially when your product on the field is not one to be proud of.
Come on now.
It is one thing when you are an elite athlete, an elite performer, people are willing to put up with your bull. Mm-hmm. I think back to when he was on the Eagles and T.O. was doing those sit-ups and stuff, but he was dominating on Sundays. Exactly. So they dealt with the personality. But Jack Del Rio has no leg to stand on with this because his team only started playing well in year one when they started going up against Nick Mullins and Gucci DiNucci in Dallas. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so that was a farce. And we thought, oh, here comes our defense is good. And then last year you had to play against quality quarterbacks and your defense got shredded. Yeah. You're ranked very low. So you've got some work to do.
Yeah.
You don't need to be saying this stuff. And this isn't the first time either.
Exactly. And again, like that's what it was brought up that he had said it, I think in 2016, 2017, around when Trump was in office, just kind of like, I'm an American. If you don't like it, you can leave, or, that type of stuff. And it's like, that just seems real combative. Like that seems like you coming at people like that. Let me see. Nathan said Dr. Rio definitely lose some respect in the locker room. That's quite interesting.
Yeah.
The fact that you can come out with those comments lets me know I have a lot of ignorance that needs education.
Yeah. If he's willing to.
If he's right. If he doesn't think he's in the wrong, he doesn't think there's any need for education.
Right.
Now those men in the locker room know exactly how it feels. Yeah, honestly, this type of thing and just kind of the bravado they had in the press conference leads me to believe that this isn't something that's hidden. You know what I mean? There's a certain type that just they wear it on their sleeve. So I don't think this was something hidden. But they alluded, Nathan and Delilah, they alluded to the locker room.
Yeah.
That's something that we have talked about and we have wondered about, like, how is the locker room feeling? Now, one of the spokesmen of the team, Jonathan Allen, one of the captains, they NBC Sports Washington interviewed him. In his opinion, he said he felt it wasn't a locker room topic. He said, everybody's entitled to their opinions. Some guys decide to share it on Twitter. Some guys don't. You have a difference of opinion. Still respect one another. I feel that's what our country's about. That's what the team is about. I don't care about his opinion as long as he shows up every day and works hard. That's what I want from my DC. Now, my question to you, Will, is that the captain doing what he's supposed to do and saying what he's supposed to say? Or is that a football player saying, look, we're here for this. If you have that opinion, that's you. But as long as you come and we're respecting one-on-one, I'm good. Like, what do you think about that?
I know it's really interesting when Jonathan came out that I was trying to think the same thing. And it's hard for us to know because that locker room is sacred and they try not to let a lot leak out. I think there's some parts to what he has to say that is true.
Yeah.
We got to also recognize you and I are at some point, almost 20 years older than some of these players.
Yeah.
Some of our interests in life may be a lot different than they were. Because let's think about us when we were in our early 20s. Were we really paying attention to the January 6 hearings that are going on right now? Did we care all that much?
Really?
Maybe not. Now, there's some bigger issues going on that might, the protests, what's happened to some Americans here might have caught our attention more. But you still may be dealing with younger men who aren't as interested in politics or in social issues. So it may be we don't care what you think. I may not agree with you, but you put me in the right position to play, and we're fine.
Right.
And who knows what happens in that locker room? I mean, what we don't know, maybe they call him Lily White Jack. Maybe they know how he, like you said, how he feels, and behind closed doors, they make fun of him, for his opinions, for being a Trumpy and MAGA and all that stuff, too. And so they're able to go about it, which I can only hope, because I really question how he's going to keep a hold of this locker room.
Yeah.
And I have been on this show for more than a year, especially last fall when the defense was struggling, putting a lot more blame on the players not fitting the scheme than the coach. But here's a situation where I'm like, the coach is out of line right here in what he's doing. And I'm real curious, how are they going to respond to this?
Yeah. And, like you said, we know what Jonathan said was interesting. Rivera said, I'm not going to discuss this. If it becomes an issue later on, then we'll address it then. Everybody's saying the right things, but it's really, it just makes you like, when you say this type of stuff, there's the professional view and then there's the personal view. And these guys are all, a lot of them have, wear the badge on their sleeve. They're really about the movement, about the Black Lives Matter and all those things. And for him to just categorize it as he did, it really kind of, it's kind of like, okay, now I see where you stand. Now I know where you are.
I see whose side you're on.
Right. You know what I mean? And it makes you wonder, because again, this is a business. They're getting paid. These guys are getting paid, more than him, some of them. So it's kind of like, all right. You're not waving the flag out here, but you are talking kind of slick. But I think it does beg the question. One of the things we've talked about before, should he be fired for those comments? I don't think so. I don't think you can. Like I said, to me, I think it's naive for us to think this type of stuff has not been littered all throughout football for years and years and years. And I understand how much we've progressed, but we ain't progressed that far in some certain things.
Right.
So, but what do you think? Do you think he should be fired for it? Or what are you thinking?
Should be. I don't know if I can go that far, but could be. Absolutely. I think Ron needs to be, taking the pulse of the locker room and really finding out, are these players going to respond to this guy? Because if they're not, if they actually are behind closed doors ticked off at him, then he does need to go, because obviously it's only going to be worse in the fall if they're not willing to, do what he says. Here's what's interesting. This is a big part. I'm really watching Ron here, because you can't come out here and blame players on discipline and saying you need to have a certain culture when you've got a defensive coordinator, one of your top coaches can't shut his mouth and he can't stop his thumbs from tapping on Twitter.
Right.
That you've got a loose cannon here that you've got to get under control. So, Ron, you can sit here and say you're not going to get into it, but you better be figuring things out inside that building. Yeah. And it needs to be, can this guy survive this? And can we work together? Because if not, I hope he's got the stones to send him packing and figure this out. Because, like I said, this is a big year for Ron. Year 3, they need to be playing well. And this is not to a good part, and he was so quick to complain about Montez and Chase Young last year, not attending OTAs. Well, here at OTAs, we got a coach that's going off the rails.
Yeah.
There needs to be the same type of accountability here.
Yeah, it needs to be checked immediately.
Yeah.
Because if it does not, like, this could be something that can linger, like the whole COVID stuff last year and what it ended up happening, and it ended up rearing its ugly head midway through the season. These type of things are things that can linger if you do not check them immediately.
Right.
And you know what? I think Nathan said it perfect. It's not a good look. It's not. We talked last time we were on here about, guys not wanting to come here. And it's for stuff like this.
Right.
You know what I mean? We got to stop this stuff.
Yeah. And I think Nathan's got a good point where he says they need to have a locker room conversation and keep it moving. And I think that's exactly it. If they have an airing out, and things are okay, then you do move on and you squash it and you tell the media, I'm not going to talk about this. We're handling this in-house, but if it doesn't seem like that could happen, then actions need to be taken.
Which
stinks because I've always been a Jack Del Rio proponent. I've seen how he gets promoted to head coach because of what he does as defensive coordinator. Right. So I thought he was a good hire.
Right. I loved him with the Jags. I loved him what he did with the Raiders. You know what I mean? And even in 2016, he stood up for Marshawn Lynch when Marshawn Lynch took a knee during the whole flags, the Star Spangled Banner thing. He stood up to him against Trump and everything like that. So it's like, okay, maybe he's an ally, but it's, this type of thing, it just stings. It doesn't surprise me, but it's like, all right, man.
Right.
Now I know. I know.
Right.
So hey, at the end of the day, Delilah says, I think you're right. They probably do make fun of him, but if they do poke at him, do they follow him as a leader? And that's where I think the locker room conversation comes in, where it's like, look, it's the players. We're here together. He's going to put us in the positions we need to be in, but it's us. It's on us. So,
right.
We'll see. We'll see how he plays out. But
thanks for watching. If you like that clip, be sure to check out the other great content from the Let's Talk Football community. And as always, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you'll be notified when more great content like this becomes available.